Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gathering around the virtual water cooler to talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news and all sorts of good stuff. And, of course, there's never a big ray of sunshine coming through your window unless the magnificent intellectual curtains of Robert Meyer Burnett are thrown open to let the goodness in. Robert, how you doing, sir?
John, I have to say, I had a breakup last night.
Oh, dear. And what was that breakup?
I broke up from an abusive imagination relationship I had with NBC's Manifest.
Oh,
after the
that's been a 2-year
finale,
relationship, hasn't it? That was like a 2-year relationship.
You know, it has been a 2-year relationship, but sometimes things have to end. You know, my mom was sick of asking me why I was still with Manifest after everything that it's been doing to me, and I finally took her advice, and it was just time to end that relationship after the season finale.
Well, you know, sometimes you just got to rip the Band-Aid off, Rob. Sometimes you just got to rip the Band-Aid off and move on. And speaking of moving on, guys, we have a bunch of items that we need to move on here to today. We're going to be talking about, listen, James Bond director talking about, you know, with all these films being delayed, should they still be working on them? We're going to be talking about that in just a little bit. Soul, the Pixar film, has yet to be moved off its date. Why is that? Can we expect it to be moved? Why Amazon should probably look at purchasing AMC theaters. More developments on the Ezra Miller thing. We're going to be talking about that in just a minute. But before we get to all that, let's talk about one thing off the top. You know, the Russo brothers had obviously recently departed the MCU on a big high note with Endgame, of course. And then they started their own, they've got their own production company, so they started producing their own movies. They did not come out of the gate well with 21 Bridges. That film was, to put it nicely, it was a disappointment. The film was a disappointment. But now they've got another movie coming out called Extraction that they are the producers of, starring Thor himself, Chris Hemsworth. And of course, in 21 Bridges, they had the star of one of the MCU as well in Chadwick Boseman. And now they're trying it again with Chris Hemsworth, who I like very much. And Rob, the first trailer for Extraction has come out. It's dropped online. It is going to be a Netflix film. Netflix films are more miss than hit, but every once in a while, they really do crush it with a good one. Rob, you had a chance to see this trailer for Extraction. What did you think of it?
Dude, calling me stoked, dude. That movie looks so... you know what it is to me? I mean, it doesn't have the goofiness to it, but it just looks like a kick-ass 80s action movie. I mean, I felt like I was watching a cross between Delta Force and Commando, but with higher production values. First of all, I love the milieu. You know, we haven't seen a lot of crossover between, say, India and the West. I love the fact that he's between two drug-dealing families from, Bangladesh and Mumbai or whatever, the two biggest warring. This movie tickles all of the awesome bones in my body, John, and well, at least the trailer did. And first of all, Chris Hemsworth, from the time he jumps off a cliff into the water and meditates at the bottom of that lake or pond or wherever the hell he is, I was so in. And you know what? Chris Hemsworth has one of the great voices in action cinema. And with Thor, it's always kind of, hearing it full on action hero, kick ass, my son is dead, so I'm going to protect you at all costs mode. There is nothing about this trailer that didn't do it for me, let me tell you. And I hope this movie kicks holy ass, because it certainly looks like it can. Please don't disappoint me.
I'll tell you what, I didn't have the same reaction to the trailer that you did.
Come on, man.
I like it. Don't get me wrong. I like the trailer. To me, it felt a little paint by numbers. Netflix, it felt a bit like a Netflix action film. You know what I mean? Like, it felt very much like watching the trailer for Six Underground. And there was very much that Man of Steel meditating under the water sort of thing. But Correct me if I'm wrong. What was the name again of the Sicario sequel? I can't with Benicio del Toro.
Oh yeah,
I keep forgetting the name. It's Sicario. Day of Sicario. It was something like that anyway, the sequel. It felt a lot like the plot from that, right, where this this master action dude has to get the kid, and now he's decided because of his past, now I've got to protect this kid. So it felt a little bit like that, which is fine. Look, I'm a big Chris Hemsworth fan. And so I'll eat up. Hell, I even watched Black Hat twice just to see if it got any better because I wanted to support Chris Hemsworth. But I mean, I don't know. Netflix has bit me too many times with some decent looking original films that then kind of don't actually work out so well. But and again, I was pretty disappointed with the Russo brothers' first production outing post Endgame with 21 Bridges, and I thought that looked great.
Yeah, I
thought it looked great. So I'm not going to get my hopes too high, but it doesn't look so bad. So here we go, guys. The question for you is, have you seen the trailer for Extraction? How do you think it's going to turn out? Do you think it's going to be great? Are you thinking, yeah, I'm still apprehensive? Do you think it looks bad? Maybe, I don't know. What do you guys think about it? Jump down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With that down and out of the way, let's move on to our main topics today. And how do we select our main topics here in the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys come up with them by going anytime, 24/7, over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question. It's absolutely free. Hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your submission featured as a main topic here on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 1. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Derek Priano, who writes, "Hey, John. So with AMC being in serious trouble, is there a chance Jeff Bezos and Amazon buy them? Disney may not have the capital currently, but Amazon definitely does. Amazon is almost $1 trillion company who I think would risk the lower profit margins to get more name recognition." All right. Thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And, the backdrop to this, of course, is the situation that AMC Theaters is in. We talked about this the other day, about the fact that AMC is currently $5 billion in debt. Their credit has run out, and there are the financial institutions that are saying they expect AMC to breach, and there is a low likelihood that they will ever reopen their doors again. I, of course, believe they will, because I believe a third party will come in and save the day, be that the studios or maybe a company like Amazon. Now, look, let me say this. The first thing I should mention here is this. Amazon doesn't need more name recognition, all right? There's nobody listening to this show right now that if I say Amazon, you go, who? There's nobody saying that, right? Amazon has all the name recognition in the world, so that's fine. But what makes this interesting is this. Amazon, as we all know in the last number of years, has started getting into the content creation game. And they've done damn well at it too. Whether it's everything from movies like The Big Sick, which I still rave about all the time, or whether it's like one of the most exciting upcoming television projects maybe ever is their upcoming Lord of the Rings television project, Rob. That's looking really slick and really good. And Rob, there used to be these laws in place that said, studios couldn't own movie theaters. And we've seen and we've talked on this show in the last number of months about how those laws are starting to get repealed a little bit.
Yep.
Which makes it's the idea of studios owning movie theaters is still extremely problematic, because what happens if Disney buys the movie theater in your neighborhood? They're not showing Warner Brothers movies. They're not showing Paramount movies. So you want to watch Top Gun? Tough luck, kid. Hop on a bus 30 miles that way. Have fun. So they're still problematic. But Amazon, I don't see Amazon having a problem if they owned and took over this major movie theater chain. I don't see there being any problem, because Amazon makes money when people buy movies off of Amazon, even if those movies belong to other people. Listen, with Amazon trying to get a foot into the entertainment business, with them having enough money to, without blinking much, paying off all the debt for AMC theaters and having all the operating capital in the world to make them up and run. And by the way, Amazon can buy and sell Disney 5 times over. I'm not exaggerating. They could buy and sell Disney 5 times over right now. for them to step in and do this could be a really attractive opportunity. The big downside to this, though, Rob, that I see is the fact that we've talked about here several times. Who wants to get into the movie theater game? It is a razor-thin margin business. It's a pain in the ass. It's expensive to do. There's not a lot of profit and all that kind of stuff. But with the synergy you could create between like an Amazon and theatrical exhibition, that could be a win. There may be some big pitfalls here I'm not looking at, but Rob, you consider the possibility of Amazon taking over an AMC theaters. What are the first thoughts that strike you?
Well, first of all, you can't just take over a theater. You have to run a theater. The day-to-day operations of a movie theater, you're dealing with the hospitality industry. And while Amazon has got into things like Whole Foods, by all accounts, Whole Foods has no longer become a place really for shoppers. It's a place for people that do the shopping for others via apps and things like that, which you can't do with the movie theater because people are coming to your theater and they're going to expect great service, great projection, great presentation, good food, all of those things. And it's a very different business model than what Amazon is doing now. If they want to get into that, fine. But you would need a whole different division of people that have a whole different skill set. And you'd basically have to create that from scratch very, very quickly. Because, when this is over, and if we look at South Korea and China have beat this thing back. And while we are not doing a very good job of that here in this country, we will do it. And eventually movie theaters will probably be open in the next quarter. And, I don't think anybody's got that much or that. How can they start a whole new business that quickly? Or maybe they could buy a controlling interest and bring everybody back to run AMC the way it was. And it's just a new parent company. Maybe that could work out. I don't know. But I would think that, again, that would take some time. And we want to see movies in July and August. And AMC needs help now. And I can't imagine even Amazon with as much money as they have. It's not like Jeff Bezos can be like, hey, man, I think I'm going to go buy a movie theater chain today. Why not? So,
although just for that graphic that Ray made, I kind of want to see it happen. If for no other reason, just for that. I mean, you've got built-in marketing right there. You call AMC's on?
Yeah, I know. I don't look. I've always believed that businesses should do what they do best. And when they diversify, it can be either very good or ultimately a bad thing because businesses have core businesses. And then with Amazon, they're getting into so many different things. Remember, they used to just sell books, John.
Yep.
And now they run grocery stores and delivery trucks and they're worldwide. And it's just, how big is big? I don't know.
But one of the things you pointed out, I think, is the key to this whole thing. I was working with AMC theaters when, at the time, a Chinese group called Wanda bought a controlling interest. Now, Wanda no longer has a controlling interest in the company. They divested themselves of most of their ownership, but they're still players in it. I remember when they took it over, a lot of us working with them saying, how's this going to change us? You know what it changed? Changed nothing. They literally didn't change a thing. I think what you brought up is kind of the key, that you keep all the infrastructure there. You keep all the people. You just come in and say, okay, now we are paying off that $5 billion in debt, which Jeff Bezos goes, wait a minute, I think I've got that in like a back pocket here. Yeah, here you go. Here's $5 billion. So you pay off the $5 billion debt, you take over controlling interest of the company, and you just let it run, and you slowly start to work that synergy of working in Amazon branding into it to set up. I think it could be a really interesting situation for Amazon if they wanted to do it. It would save AMC theaters. That would save the studios. It would save the industry. It could be an interesting thing, but like you pointed out, Rob, there are a number of pitfalls here, and it's not all that simple.
Yeah, I mean, look, I would say that in the long term, perhaps it could be interesting. You never know. Amazon always is getting new people to come in, new fresh blood, and I'm sure with new executives, you never know what they can do. But I just think that it can't happen in a month or two or three, and AMC needs help now. Unless
Jeff Bezos could cut them a check for $12 billion right now and say, there, pay off the debt, get the operation up and running, and we'll deal with everything else later. Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know.
Wouldn't that be great to live in a world where we had that kind of money? We could say, okay, look, let's just drop $12 billion on it and we'll be fine. Anyway, guys, the question for you is, what would you think of a company like Amazon? Like, for a lot of other companies, it doesn't seem to make sense. But I think for Amazon, there's a lot of potential upside there. Not that I know that that's going to happen or I think that's going to happen, but what do you guys think about that possibility? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 2. And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by an anonymous viewer who writes, with all the summer releases being delayed, I noticed that Pixar has made no announcement regarding Soul. Why do you think they still have made no announcement, and do you think it will be delayed? Thank you, and keep up the good work. All right, thanks a lot for saying that in, man. And of course, one of the more highly anticipated Pixar films for a while is the very different looking movie Soul that gets all metaphysical on us. But people seem to be eating up. They've loved the trailers. They've been, even before Onward came out, and Onward's really good, but even before Onward came out, a lot of fans were already looking past Onward and saying, what I'm really looking forward to is Soul. For understandable reasons. It looks very different. It looks really great. And it looks like something, that Pixar's has come to be known by. Taking a medium and just infusing it with deeper ideas, more complex types of stories that appeal to generations of people. They've just done it better than anybody else. And this one looks like it takes that to another level. And I believe the release date is June, if I'm not mistaken, Rob. I think the release date is June.
Yeah.
They have made no announcement at this point as to what they're going to be doing with Soul. The one thing I believe we can say for absolute certainty here is that Soul will not be releasing in June. I mean, again, a miracle could happen and we could be completely open for business again as a culture and society in the next 5 weeks. You still can't open Soul in June. It just, too much of a ramp up is needed and all that kind of stuff. I think it's fair to say that's not happening. So the question then becomes even more pertinent. Why have they not made any announcement yet? Well, I think there's a couple answers to that. First thing you have to take into consideration is there's not really a need to make an announcement, right? I mean, the potential release date is still 2 months away. So there's no need to make an announcement right now. The other thing is this. I feel like, Rob, and I'm purely speculating here, I feel like Disney with a movie like this, like a Pixar film like Soul, I feel like they probably don't want to announce pulling of the date until they can announce what the new date is. Now, we have seen other Disney films get pulled and not have a release date immediately announced. But Pixar in its own operation, they may feel like when we pull this, we want to be able to right away say, here's our new release date. Again, I don't know if that's the case, but I don't think one of the options on the table here, Rob, right now is the idea that maybe they're still hoping they can pull off a June. June seems too early for me to even have a fantasy of hope for something like that. So my personal theory right now is they're waiting to announce for when they actually have another date they can announce it's moving to. That's just my guess right now. Rob, you're looking at the situation. What do you think's going on here?
Well, I think, look, you're probably right. I think Soul is teetering right on the edge of when movie theaters may open, and there's no reason. Who knows what's going to happen? Why not? They've got time. They've got time to push it. It's not like people would be like, oh my gosh, how can you push that movie? So I think they're holding on to that until they have to make a final decision, and then it'll probably get pushed. But right now they don't have to. It's not even mid-April yet. So we're 2 months out. 60 days is a long time. So they can see where we're at, and where the response is going to be. So I think we'll find out later, but I think it's good. Why not hang on to something? Hope springs eternal, John. And if this is the first summer movie we get to see, hey, would that be such a bad thing?
Did you sense the same thing that I think myself and a lot of other people did, that even before Onward came out, that a lot of people were looking past Onward and kind of, despite the fact that it looks more like the traditional family fare Onward, big, colorful, the creatures. And if so, if you do feel like they were looking past it, what do you think it is about Soul that seems to be appealing to a lot of people wanting to get out and see this? What's making people so hungry for this movie?
Well, I think just what it's about. I watched the trailer and the whole idea behind it. I mean, I think it's pretty edgy fare. A guy dies, he falls into a hole and then his soul gets transported to essentially on his way to the afterlife. And it's dealing with issues that are at the very core of human existence, and they've turned it into something, I think, kind of irresistible. I love stories like this, and there's just something, anything that deals with the afterlife in this kind of a way, is one of those stories like I could never turn away from. I'm like, bring it on. Like it's the old It's a Wonderful Life thing, the life that could have been, the road less traveled. It has that element in it, well, you got to go back to Earth and you're granted a second chance or whatever. There's just something irresistible, and it seems important, where Onward was going to be fun. And obviously it deals with a fantasy context. And I thought the premise, well, what if fantasy life just stayed here? Modern life. I love that idea. And the idea of being able to see your father again, what's not to love about that? But this seems to have the same kind of heft to it in a way, wrapped the way like Inside Out did.
Right. Yeah.
And it seems like there's something really, really primal that really gets at the very core of what it means to be human. Maybe that's a little highfalutin, but that's kind of how I felt about the trailer. I was affected by this trailer, dude.
Yeah.
Like the trailer for Soul, I'm like, I relate to this movie. And, a man who's getting a shot to do this thing he really wanted to do and then never gets the chance because he's passed away. I mean, these kinds of stories are irresistible to me.
Yeah, I remember the impact at D23 was big when they played the first bit of footage for this. And anyway, here, the question for you guys is, how much are you looking forward to Soul? Did you feel like a lot of others that people were looking past Onward and on to Soul? Why do you think maybe they haven't announced a change of date? Do you think they have their reasons for it? Do you think maybe they're kind of hoping they can still open? I don't know about that, but jump down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right. With that down and out of the way, let's move on to main topic number 3. And our third main topic today gets submitted to us by Mark Danielle, who writes, "Hey, John and Rob. I know Rob is a big Bond fan, so I wanted to know what he thought about the director of No Time to Die saying that he doesn't plan on doing any extra work on the film since it's been delayed. My question is, isn't this a big missed opportunity? Why not make the movie as good as it can be? Isn't the brand and the audience worth the extra effort? Just wanted to know your thoughts. Thank you, and may you all bring on the filthy." All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, Mark. And yeah, Bond was, of course, one of the first, if not maybe the first, high-profile film to announce that it was bumping its release date as a result of the current situation. And they moved off, and now we've had a number of high-profile films do that. They've made the bump, they've moved off. The question then becomes, should these movies take advantage of this extra time they now have to continue working on the film and tinkering with it to one degree or another? Well, apparently, Cary Fukunaga, the director of No Time to Die, is saying, no, we're not going to do that. This is what he had to say in response to that question. He said, "Some people have asked me this, and although more time would have been lovely, we had to put our pencils down when we finished our post-production window, which was thankfully before the COVID shut everything else down." He went on to say that, and hey, you know what? Money becomes an issue too, because, more work you do on it, the more money it costs, and you have a budget for a film and all that kind of stuff. My feelings on this, and this comes from something I heard Steven Spielberg say once, but my feelings on this, on the big question of, should these producers, directors, filmmakers, should they continue on with the process of working even more on these movies, these ones that have been bumped because they have the extra time? My feeling is actually no, they shouldn't. Because here's the thing, I think there's a false sense of mathematics being done here. The false sense of mathematics I think some of us have is working on something more equals it being better. But that's not necessarily true. Rob, Ann and I are kind of addicted to these silly little cooking shows on the Food Network and whatnot. Sure. And you'll often hear, the chefs say to the competitors, you've got to know when to put, the spatula down. Like when you get to a point where if you keep fiddling with it, you're actually making it worse. You've made this thing, you've done it right. Now it's time to put it down, walk away from it, you're done. And I think the same can be true of a lot of movies. Movies are art, and at some point you just got to be able to say, just adding more things to it and continuing to pour over it. What you end up getting is Star Wars, the special edition. That's what you end up getting sometimes. So instead of like spending more time, I realized we had a window of time. We worked on it. This is the movie we wanted. This is the movie we wanted. Now, maybe the situation's different, Rob, if they get to the end and they say, we don't like our movie. Okay, well, then maybe go in and do some reshoots, do whatever. But I think at some point as a piece of art, more work does not automatically mean a better product. If you've gone through your process, you went through it all, you got to the place you're happy, you wrapped production, leave it alone, because that's probably as good as it's going to be. But I don't know, Rob, as somebody who's, as a filmmaker yourself, and as somebody who works extensively in post-production as well and all that kind of stuff, what do you think about the notion of, hey, if you got the extra time, keep working on it? Or is it at some point, as Fukunaga said, time to put down the pencil? What do you think?
Well, I have to side with Carrie on this one. Carrie, as if we're best buds. But, a movie has a finite budget, like he was saying. And if you finished your movie, if you're going to go back in and what we call opening up the movie again, if you're going to open it back up and say change editorial, add effects, whatever you're going to do, it's not just one thing you're doing. You're opening up the entire post process. You have to pay your editor. Then you have to go in and remix what you've done. The sound effects have to be added. The score needs to be changed if it's cut to picture or whatever. There's a lot of, and that's a large process that involves a lot of people that need to get paid. It ain't show friends, it's show business. And we're talking people that work by the hour that are very expensive. And I think they've gotten to a point, you get to a point with a movie where you say, yep, we're done. I mean, I have the experience with Tango Shalom, the movie that I've been working on for seems like half of my lifetime.
18 years,
yeah,
Rob.
But it got to a point where it is finished. It's complete, and you tweak it and you tweak it and you tweak it, and you get to a point and you're like, you are done. Because I'll tell you, it's diminishing returns. Could you go in and tinker? Sure. But would that really do anything to the finished film? Probably not. Remember, we were supposed to have that movie open tomorrow in the United States, or actually Friday, 10th. Tomorrow. It was supposed to open tomorrow. That means the movie was done probably 2 months ago or a month ago, that they probably were still scoring it or whatever. But then they have to make sure they've got to dub it for foreign countries. They've got to do all kinds of different things. And the movie had to be finished. So it's just that process. People don't understand. You can't just sit there and tinker with things. And you could rack up tens of thousands of dollars on this, and they're already $250 million out of pocket on this movie. So and if they're happy with it, they're happy with it. To me, when I hear his comments, I'm like, I'm excited now because he feels that the movie's done. And I think that's great.
Rob, somebody, I just want to read this off quick. Somebody in the live chat, Jesse Swarbrick, just put in a really good comment on this, and I like the analogy he makes. He says this, it's like pulling on a loose string on a shirt. Once you start pulling it, it doesn't stop. Right. So yeah, you can go. I think that's a great analogy for it. So here, the question for you guys is this. What do you think that these films should do that have been delayed and have a bunch of extra time? Should they just by default go back and keep tinkering with it? Do you think they should go, no, this film is done, let's move on to other things? Is the truth lie somewhere in between? What do you guys think about it? Jump down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to our fourth and final main topic today. And our fourth and final main topic today gets submitted to us by Barton Zaltika, who writes, "Hey, John, I watched that Ezra Miller video as soon as it came out, and my first reaction was, no way that's real. It looks so fake. But then I read Variety confirmed it's real, and yeah, he actually attacked a girl. The story makes it sound like a group she was in was giving him a really hard time at the bar, but that doesn't excuse anything. The question now is, what does Warner Brothers do with him? And what does Warner Brothers do with The Flash? Thanks, man. All right. Thanks for sending this in, dude. And, yep. Okay. Look, first of all, Barton, I got to say, I was completely on the same page as you. Okay. And we talked about this on the show yesterday. That video of Ezra Miller came out, and I said on the show, look, it might be real. And if it is, F that guy. Remember, I said that like 9 times. F that guy. If this is real, and this is what really happened, and it is as it appears, then F that guy. But I said, I have a hard time, Rob. I have a hard time believing it's real. The fact that it's only like 5 seconds, the fact that like a strong breeze could knock Ezra Miller over, the fact that it looked like he so slowly and gently took her down to the ground, like everything about it just looked to me and it's like, okay, it might be real. And if it is, F this guy, but man, this thing just screams fake. And so, we finished the show yesterday, me thinking, yeah, it might be real, but I doubt it. I don't think this is real. I doubt it. Well, guess what? Apparently it was exactly what it looked like. Apparently it was legit. This comes to us from Variety. Variety confirmed this. Now, it's a longer piece, but this is just a quick excerpt. It says, despite confusion online over whether or not the video was a joke, because I, for one, thought this looks like a joke. I did. With memes already emerging on Twitter, where Miller's name has been trending, a source at the establishment, good luck pronouncing this for me, Pixar Kaufhaus, has confirmed to Variety that this was a serious altercation at the bar, and the man, Ezra Miller, whom they identified as Miller, was escorted off the premises. And then, of course, we saw in the video what happened once he was escorted out of the premises. All right. The first thing I want to address here is, so apparently this all took place in Iceland. And Ezra Miller was at a bar in Iceland, and this takes place on April 1st. My first question is, what the hell? Why are you in a bar on April 1st? Why are you in a bar? The rest of us are all self-quarantining. Why are you in a bar? And I get maybe, well, in that town in Iceland, they didn't have a lockdown. It doesn't matter if the government said there's a lockdown. Why are you out in a bar when the rest of us are self-isolating? What the hell, man? Are you that dumb? Anyway, let's put that aside for a second here. The first thing that kind of came to mind for me upon hearing that this was legitimately real was a little bit of sadness. Sadness on one part because my opinion of Ezra Miller has lowered over the past year or so for other reasons. But my opinion of Ezra Miller playing the Flash is quite high. I like him as Flash. I like the spunky kind of weird dude Flash that he brought to the screen. I enjoyed it. I liked it quite a bit. But I also felt a little bit of sadness of, man, can one dude really be that twerpy? And when I found out that it was real, I was tremendously disappointed. Because Rob, look, call me old-fashioned. Fine. Call me old school. Call me old-fashioned, call it the Italian in me, whatever. If you're a dude, unless her name is Ronda Rousey, Amanda Nunes, or Holly Holmes, or she's brandishing some sort of weapon, if you're a dude, you do not put hands on a woman. Okay, I get it. Maybe that's not modern thinking. Fine, guilty. I don't think modern. Maybe that's old school. But if you're a man, you don't put hands on a woman. I think you a little bit less of a man. There, I'll say it. I think you less of a man. Now, there are extenuating circumstances. There are extreme circumstances again. Again, if it's Ronda Rousey across for you, you fight for your life because you're going to die. But other than that, in the absence of extreme circumstances, I'm sorry, if you're a man, you can subdue a girl. You can remove yourself from the situation. There's a lot of things. And again, let me say that all with the big asterisk that there could be extreme circumstances where maybe that's not an option. I acknowledge that. But to see a dude, and let's even, Rob, let's take for a second the fact out that it was a girl. Let's take that out. The very fact that just because he was being taunted by an individual, forget that was a girl. Forget it was a girl for a second. The fact that he's being taunted and his first reaction is to run up and grab the person by the throat and try to throw them to the ground. Really? That's how you deal with shit? Holy crap, man. If I dealt with anybody who wanted to taunt something at me, I'd be in prison. Like, I mean, like
I taunt you every day.
And that's why we do this over Skype, Rob. I got to keep
right?
Keep you at arm's length.
You kick my ass. You kick my ass.
But I mean, no, but seriously. Now put into the equation that it's a woman.
Yeah.
That just takes it to another level. It's like, okay, tough guy. Okay, tough guy. You're a real dude. You're a real man. You went up and grabbed a woman by the throat who was not assaulting you, who is not Ronda Rousey or Amanda Nunes, who did not have a knife or a weapon of some sort, who is clearly not an athlete. And I'm not trying to disparage the girl. I'm just saying, like, I sit there and look at that and go, now, the Variety article, Rob, and I don't know if you had a chance to read it at length. I did. And it does paint a picture that, look, he was being taunted, all right? Ezra Miller was, to a degree, being provoked. I mean, apparently he was in the bar. We didn't get all the details in the bar, but apparently there was a group of fans kind of giving him a hard time, wanting a picture with him and stuff like that. And apparently he responded in such a way that was so negative that the owner, despite the fact that he was a celebrity, had him escorted out of the facility. And then when I guess she was escorted out too, he decided to go at her, despite the taunting. I get it. There's some taunting. Grow a spine. Grow a spine. I get it. She's provoking you. You're having a hard time. Then say something back. Make fun of her ancestry. I don't know, but you don't grab her by the throat. So this leaves us in a bit of a predicament, Rob. It leaves us in a little bit of a predicament. And that predicament is, what does Warner Brothers do now? It's no longer a question on if it's real. Like I was questioning yesterday. I think a lot of people were questioning it yesterday, but now apparently that's not the question. And so Warner Brothers is now in the middle of a no-win situation, PR nightmare. And I will say this, we can have a debate about whether or not Warner Brothers should or shouldn't remove Ezra Miller from The Flash. We can have that debate. We can have the should debate at some point. And that's a worthy debate to have. And there's probably a good discussion to be had there. But I'm going to tell you right now, for Warner Brothers, they've moved beyond the should. Right now, Warner Brothers is deciding how they're going to remove him as Flash. Warner Brothers has their hands tied at this point. You can't have a star of your movie coming out, a family-friendly fare, DCEU, with a dude stumbling drunk out of a bar when he should have been in self-isolation, grabbing a girl by the throat and taking her to the ground. As unimpressively as he did it. Anyway, that's a side note. So, Rob, barring the possibility that new information comes to light, extreme new information comes to light that we are currently unaware of, that changes the perception of this whole thing, and maybe that happens. But barring that, what does Warner Brothers do? Do they just recast The Flash? Or do they just cancel the movie? Is this going to stain the whole idea of the movie so much? Remember, Rob, Lucasfilm was going to do that Boba Fett movie with Josh Trank. And then all that garbage about Josh Trank came out, a lot of which actually wasn't his fault, but still this whole thing came out about Josh Trank and it kind of sullied the whole project and they just pulled the whole project. Rob, let me ask you this. I know you are well known within the halls of Disney and the offices of Bob Iger, but let's say you are in the executive suites now of Warner Brothers and they bring it up. Toby Emmerich brings it up and says, okay, guys, need ideas. What do we do with Ezra Miller right now? What's your vote on that? How do you say they should take care of it?
Well, it's definitely a pickle. Look, I think it's sort of academic in the world that we live in today. Moving forward with this movie would cause a PR nightmare. And Warner Brothers would say, what? You don't care about the safety of women? Is that what you're saying? Are you giving tacit approval to this kind of behavior? And unfortunately, I mean, look, if you're a celebrity, and as you know, when I was working on DVD special features, I was around celebrities a lot. And when I would go out with them, because when you're in a foreign country for months at a time, you become friends with people. You're sticking cameras in their faces all the time. And celebrities are very aware of the fact when they go into public, there are going to be people that come up and talk to them. And there is a choice that they make when they do that. And it's the life you've chosen. And I think that when you are in Iceland, especially, you're not just a celebrity in Iceland, you're also an American in Iceland. You know, you're in a foreign country. You basically are an ambassador, and you've chosen to go to Iceland. You've chosen to go to a convention. You've chosen to go to a public place. It's just like, John, you and I would not go to a bar and get into an altercation with a woman that we don't know and choke her out in public, even if we weren't a celebrity. And you have to assume, where everybody's carrying a camera, it was just bad judgment and bad behavior all the way around. And if someone's going to drop $150 million on a superhero film, you have to be able to trust your lead actor to not destroy your investment once you've pulled the trigger. And whether this happened now or during production or during post-production or during the promotion of this movie worldwide, there's no trust anymore. If I was producing Warner Brothers, if I was producing the movie for Warner Brothers, I couldn't in good conscience pull the trigger on that kind of investment, knowing that this behavior is possible from our lead actor. It's part of the job. That's why you get insurance. Could he get bonded from an insurance company now? Probably not. And there's a lot of practical considerations to this. I have loved Ezra Miller as an actor. You and I have talked about it for a long time. But this incident has to be either investigated and it has to be exonerated. He has to publicly apologize. Something has to happen. But right now, I don't see any way that you can move forward with a Flash movie with Ezra Miller in the role. They're certainly making a Batman movie with Robert Pattinson. So
yeah. I mean, Rob, this reminds me, I can't remember which show or movie it came from, but I know it came from one and I can't remember, but it's a line that struck me very, very hard. And I believe in that. Never judge somebody that says a line from a movie or show that I cannot remember the name of, but try never to judge somebody based on their worst moment. Right? Try not to judge somebody based on the worst moment, because guess what? If somebody had a camera, ladies and gentlemen watching this show, that was turned on you when you had your worst moment, everybody would think you're a monster. And everybody would think I was a monster, and everybody would think Rob is a monster, and everybody would think everybody's a monster if a camera was put on you in your worst moment. Yep. I'm not sitting here saying, I don't think any of us are sitting here saying, Ezra Miller is a subhuman. He's just a monster. He's a jerk. I don't know Ezra Miller. For all I know, he's a good dude who had a really bad moment.
Yep.
But Rob, as you so articulately put, this puts Warner Brothers in a situation that it's not a matter of should they do something. They have to. You simply can't. If you are the company, you cannot move forward with him. Again, barring the revelation of new information that is so extreme, it completely changes our perception of the situation, which could happen. But barring that, if you're in Warner Brothers, you put it best, Rob, you still move forward with Flash and you put him in it. The outrage that would be caused by people going, really? You're putting a guy who physically assaults women in your movie? You're still doing that? It's just something they can't do right now. I'm not saying Ezra Miller can't bounce back from this. Robert Downey Jr. bounced back from, driving drunk and high with a loaded gun in the car. He bounced back from that. I'm not saying it's impossible for Ezra Miller, and nor am I saying he should never be given a second chance. Not at all. But I'm saying right now, in the immediate situation, I don't see how they do this. And I think they've got two choices. You either pull the plug on the movie, as Lucasfilm did with the Boba Fett film, and you look at it and say, you know what, this project's been a nightmare for us. This was a movie that was supposed to be in theaters over a year ago. We've never even started shooting this thing. We've had problem after problem, and it's never happened. Let's just cut our losses and not do it at all. Or you say, no, Flash is an important character to us, but we've got, like Rob, you pointed out, we've got a new Batman. Let's just put it in a new Flash. Go ahead.
Well, there's something that I've even noticed just in the last 20 years, with the advent of smartphones where everybody has cameras. I have watched a phenomenon. There are people that'll come up to, like, when a celebrity goes out, when you go to a Comic-Con, like at San Diego, and you go up to celebrities, I've always had good experiences. I've never really seen anything wrong. But I have seen people who are now emboldened that will go up seeing a celebrity in public and they'll try and start something. You know, they'll try and goad a celebrity of some kind into some kind of an altercation specifically to get it on camera. I mean, there's a fundamental weirdness that's sort of happened in our culture with reality TV and Instagram. It's the way of the world. And it's something that you have to be mindful of it. And for whatever reason, like you just said, John, a studio needs, part of the job of getting hired to be to front a $100 million plus movie is to know this. You need to know. It's just like when you as a driver go out into the world, you need to know how to drive a car. You're on the road with a lot of other people. You have to be mindful of other drivers. And for whatever reason, the world we live in today, you have to have somebody that's mindful of this. And it's good or bad. It's just the world we live in. And you have to understand that. You have to understand it.
I agree. So here we go, guys. The question is for you. If you are a Warner Brothers executive, what do you do with this situation right now? I decided to make that the topic of today's question of the day, so I jumped onto my Twitter. You can see it simply at John Campea there. It's at the top of my Twitter right now. And the question that I asked you guys just before we started the show was simply this. Barring new information coming to light that changes perception, what is Warner Brothers' best option right now regarding Ezra Miller and Flash? Replace him or cancel the film entirely? Almost 2,200 of you guys have voted since the show started. Right now, 56.4% of you guys are saying recast the role. 43.6% of you guys are saying just pull the plug. I mean, this production seems cursed at this point. Just pull the plug on it. I put it to you guys. What do you think is their best option at this point? Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. And I'm sure we're going to be discussing more of this in the live questions part. I'm sure a lot of people are going to have some thoughts, and they're going to bring that up in the live questions part. And guys, we are now going to move into the live questions part of this show. But before we do, when we get to your live questions, Robert and I are going to do as we do every day. We're going to take just a couple of minute break, give us a chance to rest the vocal cords, stretch the legs, refill our drinks, give you a chance to run and use the bathroom quickly, talk amongst yourselves. So hang tight with us, guys. Don't go anywhere. Robert and I will be right back. We'll see you in just a couple of minutes. Guys, and we are back. Thank you so much for your patience and indulgence as Rob and I took a little bit of a break there. And now let's dive into the live questions that you guys have been sending in. We're going to get things started off here with another Skywalker who sent in a $250 tip. Dude, thank you so much for supporting the channel on that level. Seriously, it's because of support like that we're able to do all the things that we do here on the channel. So thank you so much for that, man. And of course, whenever somebody does tip $50 or more, what we do is we answer the question here on the show, and then we make it into its own standalone video in the next week or two. So keep your eyes open for that. Another Skywalker. Anyway, another Skywalker writes, hi, John. I do not believe that AMC is going anywhere. Will things be tight? Yes. However, I refuse to believe an institution that large and important will be allowed to fail. So much so that I bought 1,000 shares last week. In a few years, I plan to sell high. And listen, another Skywalker, you, from your lips to God's ears, man, from your lips to God's ears, because this is what a lot of people aren't understanding right now that you seem to grasp here, is that if AMC goes under, it's not just, oh, well, one company disappeared. They are the largest exhibition company in the world. This would create horrible ramifications throughout the entire entertainment industry if this happens. That's why one of the things I've been saying is that I believe that you're going to see, if nothing else comes to the aid of AMC, if nothing else saves it, then the very last resort is I believe the studios all get together and say, we can't afford to let this movie theater go under. We can't afford it. We've got to save it. And I believe something like that's going to, maybe it's Amazon that steps up and does stuff like that. And by the way, Rob, I don't know if you saw this, but AMC stock, which was at the year high for the stock of AMC, was sitting at, I believe, $19 a share. It has dropped down. The last time I checked yesterday, it was at $2.80 a share, which made me tempted to buy some of the stock, to be honest with you, at that cheap. It made me tempted to buy some of the stock. And because if it bounces back to $7 or $8, hey, triple my money. Yay, way to go. So actually, another Skywalker, you probably just made a very shrewd financial investment. But Rob, there is the notion of it's just too big to fail. We can't. I think a lot of people are missing out on the larger ramifications. Like, really, how important is this for the industry as a whole, for AMC to stay afloat one way or the other?
I think it's very important. I mean, remember, products, if you can't get a product to your consumer base, you're in trouble. And Hollywood, their products, they're not like making toilet paper. They're making one product that they put out could cost $200 million and another $200 million in marketing. That's a huge investment for one product. And the only place that you can get that product where they get the biggest return immediately is in movie theaters. So we've got studios now. How many films have been already postponed, John? And if you collect how much in budget, how much did Top Gun 2 cost? How much did Black Widow cost? How much did Die Another Day cost? Or No Time to Die cost, pardon me. That's a lot of money. We're looking at probably billions now if you look at all the major films that have been no, it's not just the movie theaters, it's the studios, it's their lenders, it's the people that work at the studios. There's the whole chain. That's what I think people need to understand, is that our economy is all interlinked. And it is a chain, and we've never seen this kind of a disruption. I mean, even in wartime, you had whole industries that were turned around and they were up and running to build our American war machine, say in World War II. But this is like everything just stopped. And more than ever, we're going to need all hands on deck, and we need movie theaters to come back, because all of Hollywood is in the balance here. It's not just movie theaters, it's the studios, it's all the people that supply the studios, it's everybody that works in downstream industries and upstream industries. It's huge. And a movie theater is the main delivery system for Hollywood's product. And as you've talked about on this show a lot, putting a movie on a streaming service doesn't come anywhere near paying back the money that was borrowed to make the movie in the first place. I mean, we've talked about the biggest pay-per-view event ever was that Manny Pacquiao fight, and that was a $90 fee to pay, and they only made $400 million, and that's the biggest thing ever on pay-per-view. And that's not even, those movie theaters got to come back, man.
I agree. All right. Next up, we move over to Tracy E., who writes, I love watching your content. Keep up the good work. Oh, thank you so much, Tracy. Always appreciate when somebody wants to write something and just to be nice and positive. So thank you. And thank you for being here and being a part of our community as well. I appreciate that, Tracy. All right. Alvin Elmore writes, my top 5 guilty pleasures. Number 1, Killer Clowns from Outer Space. We just talked about that one a couple of weeks ago. Number 2, Highlander. Listen, sit down, Alvin. Sit down. Highlander is not a guilty pleasure movie. Highlander is one of the greatest motion pictures of all time. It is not a guilty pleasure movie. It is better to burn out than to fade away. It is one of the greatest films ever. Not so much the second one, but anyway, let's go on with your list, Alvin.
Highlander rules, dude.
Highlander rules. Number 3, Attack of the Clones. Number 4, Garbage Pail Kids. Number 5, Transformers 3. Is that not the one, Rob? Transformers 3, the one is that the one in Chicago?
Hell yeah, it is. Dark of the Moon, bro. That shit rules.
Yeah, no, you and Schnepp both like that one. I thought it was terrible, but you both of you like that one quite a bit, right?
Dude, it starts with the Americans landing on the moon, and we've got a giant battle in Chicago. I loved. Now, look, is it Citizen Kane? No. But it's a great movie about giant robots beating each other up and attacking the city of Chicago. Buildings fall into buildings. I mean, what is not to love, man?
What's not to love?
It's the Armageddon of Transformers movies.
But Alvin, listen to me, brother. You take Highlander off that guilty pleasure list and you place it firmly and proudly on one of your favorite film lists right there. That's what you do with Highlander, my friend. Christopher Lambert approves. All right. Next up, Diamond Dog. Diamond Dog's puppy writes, good day, John. What is your go-to Stallone 90s action movie of choice? Oh, that's easy for me. I always go back and forth between Cliffhanger, Demolition Man, or Assassins. The awesome stunts in Cliffhanger might give the edge to me. What say you, good sir? Cliffhanger. I love Cliffhanger. I still remember, Rob, the opening of that movie with him trying to save the girl. And he doesn't. I just remember, forget the visuals of it, all that kind of stuff. Just like that being the start of your movie. It's not terribly uncommon now to have beginnings like that, but I hadn't seen anything like that before at the time.
I'm with you.
And I'm just like, okay. And Jonathan Lithgow, I mean, come on. The movie's so good. I love it. I got to go Cliffhanger. Rob, what about you?
Cliffhanger's a pretty good one. Gosh, Under Siege, maybe.
Well, wait, Under Siege, was that a Stallone film?
No, it's Steven Seagal.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's Steven Seagal, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. But if your go-to Stallone one though, your go-to Stallone film.
I was thinking opening. My go-to Stallone movie, dude. My opening, it's Nighthawks.
Oh, but when did that come out? That was the early...
Like 1980.
I was going to say early 80s, right?
He goes after Rutger Hauer, who plays Wolfgar.
Wolfgar.
I mean,
it's
come on, man.
It's the greatest name ever.
It's Wolfgar. It's great. He plays a terrorist. That movie opens with Rutger Hauer going into... I don't know why I was thinking Under Siege, by the way. It opens with Rutger Hauer going into like a department store with a bomb in a briefcase, and he just blows up this beautiful woman behind the counter and everybody that's in the store. I think Nighthawks is one of the great forgotten Stallone movies.
All right, let's move on here. Next up, we have Mandalorian of Gondor, who writes, Kingpin, Prowler, Doc Ock, Scorpion, Tombstone, and Goblin. Closest thing we've seen yet to Sinister Six, and it was a nice nod. Of course, yesterday we did a watch party. And thank you to all of you guys who joined us. We did a watch-along watch party for Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Damn, that movie is awesome. That movie is awesome. Yeah, there's this great scene in Aunt May's house where all these characters show up, and it was kind of a little nod to a Sinister Six thing. You're absolutely right about that. All right, Willow writes, the 2019 Turkish film Miracle in Cell 7, which we were just talking about the other day, that someone wrote about, is actually a remake of a 2013 Korean film with the same title. I did not know this. There have been several remakes of that movie from various Asian countries. I did not know that. But you know what's, Rob, here's the funny thing. When we think about remakes, we always think of North America remaking a foreign film. Or sometimes a foreign country remaking an American film. I guess we didn't consider the fact that, you know what, a lot of times, like, other foreign countries remake other foreign countries' films as well. And I guess that makes sense. But I was not familiar with this, Miracle in Cell 7, which is also Creef. I was not familiar with that one at all. We learn new stuff here every day from you guys. Thank you so much, Willow, for writing that in. That's good to know. All right. Nate Dogg writes, favorite soundtracks: 1, Lord of the Rings; 2, Braveheart; number 3, Legends of the Fall. That is a nice soundtrack, actually. Number 4, any Sergio Leone, Ennio Marcione collaboration. Number 5, Star Wars, all of them. Number 6, The Godfather. Number 7, The Piano. That's a good one too. Conan the Barbarian with Basil Pomadoros. Is that who did?
Basil Pomadoros, yeah.
Pomadoros did Conan the Barbarian. And number 9, Transformers. I do like the music in Transformers, by the way. Like, as much as I say about the movies themselves, the music is bum, 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 bum. Like, when I hear it, I get chills. Like, as a matter of fact, when Ann and I go to Universal Studios Hollywood, there's a Transformers area, and they're playing that music over thing, and I get kind of chills hearing it. I love that. Nate Dogg also writes, favorite soundtrack composers: James Horner, John Barry, Ennio, John Williams, Howard. Also, another favorite soundtrack I forgot to add in my last post was Dances with Wolves. I don't remember the soundtrack so much. But Rob, a lot of great soundtracks there. Out of all the stuff that Nate Dogg has been bringing up, and he brought up a lot, and the Braveheart soundtrack is fantastic. And by the way, yeah, Lord of the Rings is my favorite score, probably for a movie like that. Everything is notwithstanding Star Wars, obviously. But Rob, what do these things stand out to you that you took a look at here?
Well, I mean, they're great. You know, it's funny. I'm a big. All of the composers he mentioned are great, and John Barry, of course, I first became familiar with him with his Bond music, but he did Dances with Wolves, and I miss his score. He had a very signature sound, but then again, we've lost so many great composers. And growing up, after Star Wars came out, that was the first soundtrack that I ever bought, and it got me into collecting soundtracks even as a kid, because before home video, listening to movie soundtracks was how I sort of relived movies.
Right.
And I remember after Star Wars came out, the first soundtrack that I bought after I got into it was Jaws 2, because John Williams composed that as well. So I started buying John Williams scores, and I became a soundtrack fanatic. And this is a great list of all the great, composers. And I mean, soundtracks, I still to this day, I don't buy them as much as I used to, because I find them to not be as great as they used to be. But it's definitely a great list of scores, a great list of composers here.
All right, we move on. Next up comes to us from also from Nate Dogg, who writes, films that had major impact on me the first time I watched them. Number 1, Star Wars. You're a man after my own heart. Number 2, Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring. Number 3, Road Warrior. Number 4, Platoon. I still remember seeing Platoon for the first time. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Number 6, Lawrence of Arabia. Number 7, Alien. Number 8, Apocalypse Now. Number 9, Breakfast Club. Number 10, The Shawshank Redemption. And that's a really good list, because you're right, man. These are films that would make a profound impact the first time you see them. Like, the first time you watch, like, Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, I'll never forget where I was. I know the exact seat I was sitting in. I know the theater I was in. I know who I was with. Seeing the Shire for the first time actually come to life, like, fulfilling all of my imagination, it made an impact on me. Star Wars is the most influential thing that's ever happened to me. With the first time you see Platoon, like, all that kind of stuff. You're right. Those are some really impactful movies, Nate, and I like the way you put that list together. All right. Next up, Java Man in Hong Kong writes, this week I want to recommend some prison movies. Number 1, In the Name of the Father, from 1993, my actual favorite acting by Daniel Day-Lewis. And did he win the Academy Award for that? I know he was at least nominated. I can't remember if he won for that.
I don't know.
I'll have to look that one up. Directed by Jim Sheridan. It is a really human story and relationship between father and son with an excellent soundtrack. The movie is fantastic. Anyway, we'll keep moving on here with Java Man, who writes another prison movies, Dead Man Walking. That was great. And I believe, again, Sean Penn either got nominated or won the Academy Award for Dead Man Walking. I cannot remember which. I know he won for Mystic River, But did he win for that? I have to look that up, I think. Chilling performances. This movie really changed my stand on capital punishment. Also, excellent soundtrack. Simply powerful. You know what? I got to look it up. I can't resist. I have to look it up. Hold a second here.
Daniel Day-Lewis did not win an Oscar for In the Name of the Father, but he was nominated. The movie was nominated for 7 Academy Awards.
For 7 Academy Awards. All right. And Susan Sarandon won the Academy Award for Dead Man Walking, but Sean Penn was nominated for it. And Tim Robbins was nominated for Best Director on that film, by the way. Let's see here. Thanks for saying that in, Java, man. That's a really cool list. All right. An anonymous viewer writes, "Hey, John and crew. So the Oscars. Roger Deakins now has 2 after many nominations. So when is it going to be composer Thomas Newman's turn? He has not won yet and has 15 nominations. In my opinion, it's a scandal. He has composed beautiful music, Be Safe. But here's the thing, though, anonymous viewer. It's not a scandal. The thing is, an Academy Award is difficult to win. You may have been nominated 25 times. Wasn't there a sound editor, Rob, recently, that had 20-something nominations and either finally won their first one or still hasn't won one? It was something like that, right?
I don't remember who it was, but yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so you can get nominated, but it's not a scandal that you get nominated at times and not win. First of all, it's a huge honor to have that many nominations, but every year you are then put into a category with the best of the best that year. And you've got a 1 in 5 shot. Actually, it's not a 1 in 5 shot, but other people may have just been better. You not only have to deliver the performance as a composer, as a cinematographer, as a costumer, whatever, you have to deliver the best performance of your life. And then hope that somebody else didn't happen to turn in the best performances of their life that might just be a little bit better than yours that year. So I don't see it as a scandal, but man, talk about somebody who is due. Talk about somebody who is due. I think that's a good observation on that one. All right, next up, Russell Amador writes, "Hey, John, did Mr. White pull off the impossible? I know it's not Khabib/Ferguson, Dana White, but this might be the next best thing at the lightweight division. Ferguson versus Gaethje, now going for the interim lightweight title on April 18th. How though, they fighting in his backyard?" So, Rob, I don't know if you heard about this. So, Dana White of the UFC has been insisting that they're going to move forward with UFC 249. It was supposed to be Tony Ferguson, who is a badass, versus the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world, Khabib Nurmagomedov, who is simply the baddest man on the planet, pound-for-pound. However, UFC told Khabib, the fight's not happening in the U.S., you can go home. So he goes home, then they say, oh, the event's still on, but now he's locked down and can't get out. He can't get out, so they had to change the event. So now they're bringing in another badass in Gaethje, who just had a remarkable fight against Donald Cowboy Cerrone. It's going to be great. Apparently, I don't know if you heard this. I just got this last night. Dana White.
I haven't heard it.
has rented an undisclosed, he's not saying where it is, he has leased out a private island because he couldn't find anywhere that would sanction him putting on the UFC. So they're not disclosing the location. And they're saying they're going to bring in the fighters, quarantine them, everybody's going to be heavily tested who's going to be involved in it. There are going to be no fans in the crowds, and ESPN is going to be broadcasting it, and it's like something out of a movie.
Dude, I love
literally got out and got a private island to do this. So it's happening April 18th.
I know nothing about the UFC, but God love people.
I mean, it's one of the craziest things, but I love it. I'm looking forward to seeing it. All right. Next up, Motion writes, highly recommend BoJack Horseman. I just binged it all in a week, and it's easily one of the deepest shows I've seen. Listen, I've had so many friends telling me to watch that, including Kaori, who loves it, and it is on my queue. I do have to get around to watching it at some point. Rob, have you ever watched BoJack Horseman?
A couple of episodes. Again, it's really clever. I like what I saw, but it's not something I would watch over and over and over again, even though, it's one of those shows I'm sure like you, people are like, you should watch this show, Yeah.
And hey, some of my favorite shows are the shows that started with people saying, you should watch this show. And then I do, and it's like they become some of my favorites. All right, an anonymous viewer writes in, I know you don't like cats, but have you seen or heard about the Netflix documentary Don't F with Cats? It's a great documentary, but it's also a very tough watch. If you haven't, it's basically about this Facebook group trying to track down a cat killer. Rob, I believe you mentioned you did see this documentary series, did you not?
Yes.
And what did you think of it?
Oh, well, it kind of makes me weep, but it's certainly wildly entertaining.
I've heard a lot of people talking about this. I haven't gotten around to myself, but I probably should at some point.
It's I gotta say that a lot of these documentary series that are coming out, they always seem to be on Netflix or something, but I like them all. And I don't know if it's because I've been conditioned by reality television, but they certainly do a good job sucking you in and then giving you the revelations where you're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. 50 Shades of Geek writes, I just woke up to the news that young Flash actor Logan Williams passed away at the age of 16. Such a shitty way to start the morning. My best wishes go out to his mother, who is currently alone because of the virus situation. R.I.P. Logan Williams. We talked about this briefly yesterday. 16-year-old actor who played the young Barry in Flash Season 1. He also appeared in Supernatural. Passed away. I have not read or heard what the cause of death was, but obviously when anybody passes away, it's a tragedy, but particularly when it's somebody that young. And all of our condolences as well go out to the friends and family of Logan Williams. 50 Shades also writes, John, you're not alone. I really like the trailer for Artemis Fowl 2. It sucks that no one else did though, but I guess all I can say is, how dare I? I mean, yeah, it was, again, nobody liked the Artemis Fowl trailer, except I thought me. Like, I felt like I was the only person in the world. And I've never read the books. I don't care about the books, whatever. I just thought the trailer looked pretty good. But man, people got mad that I liked the trailer. Like, angry that I liked the trailer. I mean, sorry, I'm not spitting on your book. I'm just saying I like the trailer. But it is what it is. And now it is going straight to streaming. All right. Quentin Floyd writes, crazy hypothetical, but hear me out. Recast Ezra with Harry Styles. He has shown potential as an actor while working with Christopher Nolan on Dunkirk. Okay, but why Harry Styles? Why not 1,000 other actors who are better? I'm not saying Harry Styles isn't good. And I'm not saying it can't be Harry Styles. I'm just saying this is why I don't do X actor and X role. Because they clearly have a vision for what they want their Flash to be. And Ezra Miller was a fulfillment of that vision. So you got to bring in somebody who can kind of do that. Harry Styles did a nice little job in Dunkirk. And he was supposed to be in Little Mermaid, if I'm not mistaken. And then he backed out of that, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
But it's, again, I don't like the X actor and X role things because there's a million different variables we're not considering. But look, if they announced tomorrow that Harry Styles was playing Flash, I'd have no problem with it. I guess I could say that. Rob, what do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, I absolutely, you know what? Actors, they can always surprise you. That's how I feel about it. I mean, you just got to see where I never judge anything until I see it when it's done. I think that's the best way to look at it. Wait and see.
All right. Next one up comes us from Grand Moff Kevin, who writes, The Flash felt like it was stuck in production hell anyway. But what will Fantastic Beasts do with Ezra Miller? That's another question. I wonder. His character has been the center of the plot for the last 2 movies. Yeah. And it also, by the way, another Warner Brothers property. With this one stupid action, Ezra Miller has really effed over Warner Brothers on 2 different fronts now, because there is also the Fantastic Beasts front. And of course, fortunately for Warner Brothers, they haven't started shooting that movie.
Right.
So they've got that in their favor. Again, I don't know. I don't know how you... Listen, with all the controversy surrounding Johnny Depp, and I thought Johnny Depp was really good in that Fantastic Beasts movie, but they opted to keep Johnny Depp in that movie when a lot of people were calling for him to be out. So I don't know. Maybe they play it a little different and they just keep Ezra Miller for that one because maybe that one's further away.
Or, I mean, Ezra Miller's got to come out in front of this and apologize.
Absolutely. I already, listen, it's 10:15 in the morning Pacific Standard Time. Unless I'm missing something, he's already pushed this way too long. He needs to get out in front of this and address this quickly. And I don't know, but you're right. The whole Fantastic Beasts is another thing that puts them in a difficult spot. So we'll see how they kind of navigate that as they move forward. All right, the Nerd Errant writes, movies I'd like to see remade. Muppet Wizard of Oz, do it right this time. Tron needs a solid script that further explores the concept of the computer world. Space Mutiny, could now use the reboot Battlestar Galactica footage. I'm not familiar with Space Mutiny. Rob, are you familiar with that one?
No.
I don't think I've heard of that one.
I don't know what that is.
And I don't think you remake a Muppet homage. I don't think you remake Muppets Wizard of Oz. I don't think you do that. Tron, though. Tron's an interesting thing because they tried to get Tron going again with its sequel, and that kind of sputtered a bit. I wasn't terribly impressed with Disney's last Tron movie.
I was
great
disappointment.
Great soundtrack. Great soundtrack.
I love their soundtrack. The Daft Punk score is great.
And some interesting visuals and stuff like that. But Did you ever see that Tron animated series they did after the movie? What was it?
Yeah, it was
Tron
pretty good.
Resistance or Tron Rebellion or Tron
Uprising.
Uprising. It was a pretty good little animated show. I liked it.
I did too. I was really, obviously I made a documentary on the making of the original Tron. It's on that Blu-ray, and I love Tron. I love what it represented. I didn't like Legacy that much. I thought it was really well made, but I thought the storyline was weak, and it didn't address what's happened to our world with the internet, which I thought was strange. But I wanted them to make a third one. I thought that, look, people love the Tron franchise, and if you were to make a great Tron movie, people would show up. Even now, hopefully Kaczynski, Top Gun's great, because Oblivion, I enjoyed Oblivion. He's a great visual stylist. I'm really looking forward. He did that firefighting movie, but now he's doing Top Gun, and Top Gun looks great. Maybe if it's a big hit, they'll make another Tron.
Do you think they can, though, at this point?
I mean, I do, because look, they can always make anything if it's good, and I think that even a moribund franchise can come back if you have. Who would have thought Creed would have been as successful as it was? Not that Rocky VI or Rocky Balboa was a bad movie, but Ryan Coogler just came in and reinvigorated that entire franchise and gave Stallone his best Rocky role probably since the original. So you never know, if they come up with a great story, maybe you could have another great Tron film.
All right, let's move on here. Next up comes to us from 50 Shades, who writes, "The acting in Star Trek, the original series, can be summarized in one word: eyebrows." I mean, look, I think Star Trek, the original series, gets some flack for the acting and stuff like that, but you got to understand, that was the acting in shows in that era was more like stage acting today, where it's the style of it is done a particular way. And yeah, there's still a lot of jokes about William Shatner's James T. Kirk. We see a lot of impersonations of it and stuff like that, but that's what it was in the era. Rob, when you hear the criticisms of, say, the acting in that original Star Trek series, what's your initial response?
The acting in the original Star Trek is incredible. I love the acting. The fact that all those characters are indelible, the fact that people make fun of Shatner. I mean, there are some amazing bits of acting in the original Star Trek. But what's interesting is, I think now, again, it was a different time. And I think that there's a lot more. Remember, Shatner's a classically trained theatrical actor. And it was much more, the acting in Star Trek is very theatrical. And I think it's just a different style. It's not as naturalistic. But, I mean, Leonard Nimoy is incredible as Spock. Shatner, I could give you a dozen scenes where Shatner plays Kirk, and it's masterfully done. I mean, think about what they make those actors do in some of those episodes, and they sell it. There's a lot of, as much as I love Star Trek, there's a lot of goofy stuff. I mean, Spock without a brain, walking around as a mechanized, brainless automaton that, and yet they pull it off. The fact that everything is done with a straight face. I love the acting in the original Star Trek. I would never apologize for it, and I would dare say it was some of the finest acting in any science fiction show ever.
All right. Next up, I knew you'd be passionate about that. Buddy Christ, the original Jedi, writes, "Inspired to watch black and white films by y'all. Watched my favorite, To Kill a Mockingbird. Then watched The Great Dictator." It's the Charlie Chaplin one, right? Oh my God, the speech at the end is chilling and still so very relevant at this moment. The speech at the end, if I am thinking of the right one, and it's the Charlie Chaplin one we're talking about. The speech at the end of The Dictator is as applicable today as it has ever been. And it is great. Rob, first of all, correct me if I'm wrong. I am thinking of the right movie, right? The Charlie Chaplin one, but also, what do you think about what Buddy Christ had to say?
Yes, I think you are thinking about the right film. No, I tend to agree with him. I guess. Yes.
Okay. I like it. That is a good one. And by the way, you guys can find that speech. It's on YouTube. So you can go and find it, and you should look it up because it's beautifully done.
Dude, it's one of the great pieces of film like ever.
And why Charlie Chaplin is revered in this town that we live in so much. Okay, the nerd Aaron writes, in a comic, Superman said that he'd let Batman win in a fight because he needs the ego boost more than Clark ever would. Applying this to the Arrowverse, Superman hasn't been jobbing, he's been confidence boosting and has the patience of a saint. That nerd errant is talking about, that is the definition of try to look on the bright side. Try to see something good in this. That is definitely some prize winning, optimistic thinking. I appreciate the way you've approached that. He's not jobbing. He's confidence boosting the people around him. That's a good way to look at it. All right. Darth Wayne writes, movie recommendation, Blowout from 1981, directed by Brian De Palma, amazing neo-noir political thriller featuring one of John Travolta's best performances, maybe his best performance. Always found this movie very underrated and underappreciated. De Palma's best movie, in my opinion, which has this really weird kind of premise. So basically, he's this audio guy, right? Yeah. And he's recording sounds, and then he catches, the sound that proves murder. Anyway, Rob, have you ever had a chance to watch this one?
Bro, I own the Blu-ray.
Of course you do. Why'd I even ask?
No, I like Blowout a lot. I mean, it's one of De Palma's best movies, and certainly John Travolta. It's funny because he was really, after doing Grease and Saturday Night Fever, he was really seen as a very competent dramatic actor because of that movie. It's a little over the top, and it's sort of an homage to Michelangelo Antonioni's movie Blow Up, which I really, really like. And it also deals with making movies. He's a sound recordist, and he's working on a horror film. So he's out there recording, he's like Ben Burt. And I remember when I first saw that movie, I knew exactly what he'd done because I'd seen the making of Star Wars special, and Ben Burt tapping on the wires to make blaster noises and stuff. And I'm like, that guy's they made a movie about Ben Burt.
That's exactly what it is too.
Totally.
All right, good recommendation, Darth. All right, 50 Shades writes, John, have you seen Ozark Season 3 yet? Good, me neither. That's playing out because everybody asks me every single day about Ozark Season 3. Well played. All right, Jerome Smith II writes, the Villainess film is on Hulu, and it was amazing. Okay, that's where it is, because somebody was writing in the other day and recommending that one. Apparently it's on Hulu. I'm going to have to check it out, because that sounds actually pretty good, the way everybody's talking it up. Darth Impact writes, all these actors, Ezra Miller and Johnny Depp, follow the playbook of Robert Downey Jr. He is the epitome of second chances. I mean, and that's kind of something that I brought up a little bit earlier. Look, again, we try not to judge somebody based on their worst moment, because then we're all screwed if we all did that. And so I don't know. Maybe Ezra Miller is a world-class jackass. Maybe he's a really nice guy. Rob, actually, as a side note, did you see what Daly, the guy who is going to be the director of Flash, tweeted out?
No.
About so Daly and his partner, the guys who directed Game Night, with Jason Bateman, which I thought was awesome, and they wrote one of the Spider-Man movies. He was supposed to direct Flash, and they had creative differences with Ezra Miller. And they ended up being the ones to leave. The directors left over creative differences with Ezra Miller, right? Which we talked
about, yeah.
That was the big phrase, the creative differences, they left. So Daly, he does not mention Ezra Miller by name, but he just got on Twitter and wrote creative differences and just left it. So clearly there's one guy out there who is not a fan of Ezra Miller, apparently. So casting a little bit of shade there. I just thought it was interesting. But again, I don't think any one mistake, obviously there's exceptions. I don't think any one mistake should condemn you forever. There are exceptions, but it would have to be extreme. So I'm not saying Ezra Miller can't bounce back from this in time, but I feel like The Flash maybe in some big difficulty right now. All right, next one up here. Darth Impact also writes, this is just for you, Anne, and the gang. I hope you guys are doing well in lockdown. And I must say, John, that thumbnail of Anne in your companion video, you lucky dog. So I was lucky enough. Anne actually did the companion video with me last night. And she's told some great stories. Anne is always fun and delightful. And I always like the opportunity to get Anne on camera so people can see and appreciate what I get to live with every day, both good and bad. If you saw yesterday's video, you know what I'm talking about. But anyway, thank you for the comment, Darth and Beck. I appreciate that, man. Mansa Munsa writes, hey, John, if Dune bombs at the box office, will it negatively impact high-budgeted sci-fi films? Blade Runner 2049 lost money. No, it didn't. It lost a lot of money. I'm concerned movie studios will be hesitant to make these expensive films. Rob, there's no question. There's no question. Listen, because it's one thing if a studio can look at a high-budget sci-fi movie that doesn't do well if the movie was bad. Then they just think, okay, well, we got to do better. They did Blade Runner 2049 and made it really good.
Yep.
And still nobody went to go see it. Now, there's a lot of different reasons for that, but if they do Dune, and then assuming for a moment that Dune is great, because it's Denis Villeneuve doing it. So let's assume for a minute it's going to be great. If they do that, a known recognizable IP, made with quality, great cast, a named director right now, and it still fails at the box office, yeah, it's going to make every studio second and third guess the notion of greenlighting a non-franchised, non-existing franchised, big-budget sci-fi epic. It absolutely will. Rob, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I think you're absolutely right. You know, I mean, if ever a movie needed clever marketing, I mean, I'm really hoping that Mountain Dew comes in and it becomes Mountain Dune and they do the Dune and we have a great marketing campaign based around Dune for soft drinks and things, because, man, I just don't see, as good as Dune might be. Boy, I really hope that the film does well, because I mean, it's a smart movie. The script is terrific, and it's been made. It's so A-list. Everything, it has everything going for it. But the one thing that you can't. I just don't know if people are going to show up, man. I don't know. It's not exactly. It's not a caramelly nougaty goodness in the center. It's a thinking person's movie. It is a political thriller. It's sci-fi. It deals with a lot of heady issues, and it's not. You know, it doesn't have it's got action in it, but it doesn't have
big action. There's some big action.
Yeah, but I mean, God, I hope. Look, if you like Game of Thrones, Dune is your movie, and I hope it appeals to people the same way that they love Game of Thrones. But if it doesn't work, John, big budget literary adaptations. And by the way, it's only the first half of the book.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't do well, we're never even going to get the second half of the first book, which will be a real shame.
I'll tell you what it all comes down to here, Rob. If we're going to continue the comparison with Blade Runner 2049, and that is an applicable comparison because it connects on a lot of different levels from the director, you know, a heady sci-fi. If they're going to learn anything, it's got to be, you got to market the movie right. Because they did not market Blade Runner 2049 right. Like, nope. In the least. They never told the audience what the movie was about. And fine, all the cinephiles can go, well, I like it when they don't tell me anything. I want to walk in surprised. Good for you. Guess what? The majority of the movie-going audience wants to know what the movie's about. You don't have to spoil the movie. Just tell me what the movie's about. Blade Runner 2049's marketing never, even on a basic level, told the audience, hey, this is what our movie's about. Come check it out. They never did that. Go ahead.
The key art was terrible.
Yeah.
The artwork is literally that blue and orange, the teal and orange thing. I mean, it was the worst marketed film. I couldn't believe how badly, John, it was marketed. It wasn't. Blade Runner 2049 is a cool movie.
It is.
I mean, it's and they should.
And I don't even like the original. And I like Blade Runner 2049. I thought it was really good.
they marketed it. It was not, their marketing should have made it cool. Like, this is the cool movie to see. And they didn't do that. Oh man, it bummed me out.
See, and with Dune, I think there's a lot there. And with the lessons you learned from Blade Runner 2049, number one, in a very concise way, tell the audience in the marketing what the movie's about. Let the basic plot become evident in the trailer. Number two, you show sandworms. You show Fremen running out there. You show some big epic action while communicating what the basic idea of it is. Highlight the big stars who are in there, and you move on. You do that effectively, this movie will be fine. It'll be fine.
Yeah, and you got to tell people that this is about two warring houses, and the political machinations, and it's two great leaders are going up against one another, and they've really got to emphasize all that.
I agree. Anyway, we could talk about this all day. Let's move on to the next one here. Star Wars Rocks writes, "Hey, John, I've got a bit of a trivia question for you." All right, here we go. What actress in both the High School Musical trilogy, well, you lost me already. I do not care and don't know the High School Musical trilogy, so there's that. And the Thunderbirds movie was released in 2004. So I will read it again just so Rob can hear it. What actress in both the High School Musical trilogy and the Thunderbirds movie that was released in 2004. Rob, you got any? I know you're a big High School Musical guy.
I don't know anything about.
You're like all Zac Efron all the time.
I don't know. However, I do have an affectionate. Jonathan Frakes directed the Thunderbirds movie. It's based on the great Super Mario Nation series, of which I own the Japanese Blu-rays. I have every episode of the original Thunderbirds on Japanese Blu-ray, and I'm a huge fan of it. Even though it's not
the
great.
Only other person besides Zac Efron that I know that was in High School Musical was Vanessa Hudgens. That's it. Other than that, I have no other idea. By the way, I love Vanessa Hudgens. I love her. I think she's great, but whatever. Okay. She said some stupid things online recently regarding the coronavirus, but anyway, that aside. All right, let's move on here. Jay Moon writes, "Hey, John, big fan of the show. Thank you so much, Jay. You've helped me through... tiling and plastering my bathroom. What's your thoughts on a remake?" By the way, I'm envious. I wish I knew how to do home renovation myself. That'd be great. What are your thoughts on a remake of the movie Zulu starring Michael Caine in the style of the 300 film starring Terry Crews, Idris Elba, Michael B. Jordan, Michael Earl? Well, again, take any casting out. I don't do X actor and X role. A remake of Zulu. Man, I remember that was one of the first movies, Rob, not the first movie, but in the first year that we got a VHS player at home, that I remember my dad rented Zulu, and I watched that, and I remember being like, whoa, like it's a powerful movie. I could see doing a Zulu remake. You could make that pretty epic. I mean, there'd be political questions to be brought in there too, which might be problematic, but in principle, I think it could be pretty badass if you do it the right way. What do you think?
Look, man, as long as they don't use like the massive software they use for the Battle of Helm's Deep and Lord of the Rings, I love Zulu. I own that movie on Blu-ray too. And I look, I know it deals with British colonialism and all that, but the battle scene at the end, the whole movie, the battle's epic. They could remake it. But again, like you said, there's, I think, problematic political issues. People would be like, what kind of movie is this? I mean, even though it's based on a true story, I don't know, man. I don't know if you could remake it today. And if they did, they would use CG, and it would bum me out.
All right, next one up comes to us from Stifler's mom, who writes, Endgame question. With old Captain present in the same universe as original Captain, doesn't that mean the original universe is off-screen with no more Captain after he left to return the stones? The entire MCU we've watched is an alternative timeline. Again, this is part of the problem with the idiotic multiple dimensions stuff. Listen, that's a question that's been asked many times in different forms and in different ways. And there's never really been... I remember, Rob, recently, we talked about this on the show, that even one of the writers of Endgame kind of acknowledged, yeah, there's some things we just don't know what the answer to it is. Like we just did it because it worked. We don't know what so when even the writers don't really know how the implications all really play out. Look, at some point look, I've said this before and people give me a lot of heat, and I'm sorry, but it's true. There is a number of logic problems with Endgame. That said, there are a lot of great movies that have logic problems. And at some point you just go, okay. And just accept it, that it's there, and then just embrace the rest of the movie. And that's why, like, to me, Endgame is not a top 3 or top 4 MCU film, but a highly enjoyable movie and a hell of a lot of fun. And it is. But yeah, it's a movie also with some problems. It is a movie with some problems, and the logic issues is just one of them. Rob, I think you actually enjoyed Endgame even more than I did. And we've talked about it a few times, but how would you address that?
You know what? Look, it's funny talking about logic problems in an Avengers movie,
yes,
where they're dealing with one man using Infinity Stones to snap away half the creatures in the universe. But first of all, I watched the first half of Endgame because I was calibrating the soundbar the other day. I love the first half of Endgame so much. I love how it deals with I think the first half of that movie is incredible. I think when people get into the logic issues, it's going in through the quantum realm and going through time and dealing with all of that. And I do think that because there's so many questions that are posed by what they're doing, by their time heist, as Ant-Man would call it, as Scott Lang would call it, that there's a lot of logic issues I think that they breeze past. But while you're watching the movie, I never stop and go, wait a minute. I don't. It never stops me going, wait, that doesn't work. I can. A real logic issue is when I'm stopped cold while watching a movie and ask myself, hang on a second, how can this work? And I think Endgame doesn't do that. I think it's so outlandish, but you buy into it all as you're watching it. And that, I think, is the test of whether a movie works or not, because when you're dealing with fantasy cinema, and this is high fantasy. I mean, Infinity War and Endgame, I think, are two of the greatest fantasy movies ever made, actually. But when you get to the end, it's like, and you start thinking about it, then you start going, wait a minute, and you really have to. But I still think logic issues are surmountable. You can kind of explain them away because, especially with time travel, they have a very interesting way in dealing with time travel where they flat out say that when you travel to the past, that is your future. You're moving into your own future. Even though you've gone into the past, you personally are going into your own future. So that means you can never go back into your own past and change your past. And I thought that was really interesting because that negates like the Back to the Future, and they make a joke of it. But by doing that, they very specifically tell you what their time travel limitations are, which are different from a lot of other movies. And I think a lot of people miss that. And they're like, well, that's not how time travel works. But they set up their own rules and they stick to them pretty well if you were to sit down and, I guess, do it on a graph.
But that was part of my problem. See, I don't care. I often talk about like big sci-fi films about, and I gotta be careful we don't spend too much time on this, but I'm fine with movies doing ridiculous things as long as you adhere to the rules you set up for what your universe does.
Right.
I don't care if it breaks the rules of our world and the real world, but when you set up rules in your universe, stick to the rules of your universe. And I guess I had a problem with that. I found Endgame did set up its own rules of how time travel and all that kind of stuff works.
Yes, it does.
And then I found that they did they broke their own rules on a couple of occasions. And I think that was the part where the writers just went kind of, yeah, well, we don't know, whatever. And I think there's a part of us, listen, if we want to get nitpicky like that, we can do that to Star Wars and we can do that to Lord of the Rings. And at some point in these high concept fantasy sci-fi things though, I think with everyone, we've at some point just have to go, okay, we acknowledge the problems there, but we're going to take that and put it aside and just kind of enjoy the rest of the movie for what it is. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that's what a lot of us look. The thing about Endgame was it was just such an adrenaline ride. Like you just got to hop on the surfboard and ride the wave and just go with it and have just a really good time. And later on, yeah, we can nitpick it a bit, but it's just a fun ride. So Yeah, it is. All right. Just a couple more quick ones. Then we got to let Robert go here. Abdul writes, 1917 or Dunkirk. Oh, that's easy for me, 1917. Nolan is a better director than Mendes. I agree. Mendes is great, though. But 1917 takes it. I agree. I think 1917, I'm not going to say 1917 is better than any Christopher Nolan film, but I will say I think 1917 is better than Dunkirk, although I do like Dunkirk quite a bit. All right. Anonymous viewer writes, I did it, John. I watched the Godfather trilogy for the very first time. I'm envious that you got to do that. That's awesome. And holy moly, what a ride. Part 2 stuck with me the most and has become my third favorite film of all time, only behind Life is Beautiful and Lord of the Rings that I count as one. It makes my heart happy to see you put the Italian Roberto Benigni Life is Beautiful film up there. Guys, seriously, so many of you guys have still not seen Life is Beautiful. Watch Life is Beautiful. And tell me, I dare you to tell me it does not shake you emotionally at the end of the film. Tell me it doesn't shake you emotionally. I guarantee that it will. But Anonymous, good on you for getting on the Godfather trilogy, man. That's awesome. Okay, last question we do here with Robert, and then we got to let him go do his thing. Elijah Anderson writes, do you and Rob think that Tenet could still hit its release date if they went full force on an online marketing campaign, or do they need the theaters and major television events? Thank you both. Here's what I personally think, because Rob, it's currently scheduled for July, right? July 19th or something like that. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, it's mid-July.
So here's the thing. If, as of today, there's enough time. Yeah, I think there's enough time today. But the problem is they can't drop $70 million and ramp up their marketing campaign because they don't know the movies will be able to be open in July. Right. That's the problem. So theoretically speaking, if we could look into the future and we all saw that, yep, end of July, we've got this managed, we've got this thing under control, we're opening back up society, restaurants are open again, theaters are open again, blah, blah, and we know by that date, everything will be open again, and we can tell you that with 100% certainty, then theoretically, yes, there is enough time to spin up a marketing campaign right now, being in April, to do your full-blown, full marketing push, and I think you'll be fine. But that's not the situation we're in, so I don't see it. Rob, how do you look at that?
Well, I again, just like you said, it depends where we're at. We've seen countries like Wuhan now is no longer under any kind of quarantine. South Korea was able to get on this thing when they had their first outbreak, when we did, and they're basically open for business again. If we can get our act together, maybe that can happen. But again, we're just not going to know for a while. And I think we're 3 months away. We're more than 3 months away from Tenet. That's 25% of a year, and maybe if we, in a month, maybe even if it's June 1st, they can open movie theaters and they go, we're going to open movie theaters by July 15th. And the first one we're going to open with is Tenet. I mean, they could really make a push in a month and a half, in 45 days. They could explode a marketing campaign and make it an event. I mean, how cool would it be? You reopen movie theaters with Christopher Nolan's new mind F of a movie. I mean, I can't imagine it. I'd run to the theater, John, but we just don't know yet.
Yeah, and it is the big question mark that causes the problems. Well, listen, Rob, as always, it is an honor to have you here, and always good to talk this stuff with you. And we will, of course, see you again tomorrow when we will do our movie recommendations. We had lined up our movie recommendations today, but our final topic went a lot longer than we thought, and so we had to move on to live questions. So we'll get around to our movie recommendations tomorrow, guys. Don't worry about it. But Rob, in the meantime, where can people find you and all the good stuff that you do?
You can find me on Instagram at Robert Meyer Burnett. Find me on Twitter at BurnettRM, or of course my own YouTube channel, The Burnett Work, and my show Robservations.
A show about something, by the way.
A show about something.
All right, Rob, thanks a lot for being here, man. And we will, of course, talk to you again tomorrow. Have a good one, my friend.
You too.
All right. Okay, guys, with that down, now let's keep on going here with your live questions. We got about 15 minutes left. Let's see how many of these we can get through. And we're going to pick things back up with Bellboy Baggins, who writes, Barney would subvert all of my expectations if it turned out to be a horror film and he's killing some fools. Come on, Five Nights at Freddy's, Barney's. Five Nights at Barney's. Listen, I'm telling you what, don't laugh. If they decided to go Chucky with Barney, if you want to tell me you're doing a Barney movie and you're subverting expectations, do exactly what Bellboy Baggins say. Make it a horror, straight up horror. He's like, I love you. And then the cameras go off. Come here, little Billy. And the intestines of little Billy flying all over the place. You do that, I'm in. You do that, and I'm in. All right, next one up. Comes up from Rain Edwards, who writes 1 of 2. Hello, John and Rob. I really enjoyed a Star Trek discussion you both had a few weeks ago. I am 50 years old and have been a Star Trek fan since I was 5, in all its iterations, including Discovery and Picard. I have a lot of love for both shows. Are Discovery and Picard perfect? No, but I appreciate what they are doing, and I know Rob's view about Discovery and Picard. However, I am curious to know your relationship with Star Trek, and what are your thoughts on Discovery and Picard? I am not as... Yeah, obviously, at least very well known, Rob hates Discovery and he hates Picard. I am completely different. I really like Discovery, which is funny because, you know, I bagged on Discovery for a year before it opened. I just thought all the behind the scenes drama, nothing about it sounded good. Then they were going to put it up on this stupid CBS All Access thing. It's like, what the hell's that going to be? And this dumb move. And I bagged on Star Trek Discovery for an entire year. And then I watched the debut, the 2-episode debut of Discovery, and I'm like, holy crap, I actually really like this. This is really good. And I enjoyed it. And I've really enjoyed Picard. I agree with you, Wayne. Perfect? No, they're not perfect. But they are, Discovery is very uniquely different kind of Star Trek, and I've appreciated that. Picard is very familiar feeling, and I really like that. So yeah, I like them both. Now, my relationship with Star Trek isn't as deep as, say, Rob's, but, you know, my mom used to love the original Star Trek series, so she would have the reruns on all the time. So that's where I got acquainted with it, and I really like Star Trek. And then I still remember sitting with my family when on the debut of the very first Star Trek The Next Generation, Farpoint Station, and watching that for the first time, and I was hooked on Star Trek The Next Generation. I love that show. And I've watched everything Star Trek related ever since. And again, I'm not as big of a Star Trek fan as Rob, nowhere near. But yeah, I really like Discovery and Picard. So I'm glad you do too. But clearly not everybody does. Like Rob doesn't like them. And there are others who don't. And that's cool. But personally, I'm with you, Wayne. I do enjoy them myself. So thanks for writing that in, man. I appreciate that. Thanks for sharing your thoughts. All right, Ben Rayner writes, hey, John and crew. Thanks for all you do. Thank you, Ben. Have you watched... Come on, guys. Have you watched Ozark Season 3 yet? I'm just messing with you. Don't worry. It's a Netflix binge after this week or next week. No one will talk about it again. LOL. Just kidding. I mean, that is the one problem. You bring up an interesting point, Ben, because that is the one problem about Netflix dropping their entire shows at once is that people binge them immediately and then nobody's talking about them again 2 weeks later. Whereas when you do what Disney Plus does and you release one episode a week, people talked about Mandalorian for months. Every week in, week out, everybody talked Mandalorian. Ozark Season 3, a week from now, no one's going to be talking about it. And because we saw that happen with Punisher, we saw that happen with Stranger Things Season 3, we saw that happen with all this other. They drop these things and everybody talks about it incessantly for a week and then it disappears. Poof, gone. And that's why I think you're going to see in the coming years, you're going to see Netflix start to mess around with the week-to-week release. And I actually think it's the right thing for them to do. Okay, where are we at here? Mason Wright writes, hey, John, what are your thoughts on the Garbage Pail Kids movie? When I was a kid, it was one of my favorites. Not really. I have no memory of it. I remember it existing. I remember that I saw it. I have no memory of it. I never revisited it, to be honest with you. So who knows? I could watch it again today and go, wow, this was brilliant filmmaking for its time. But for whatever reason, it made no lasting impression on me because I couldn't tell you the first thing about the movie. Couldn't tell you the first thing about the movie. So I guess my answer to that, Mason, is that it didn't create any lasting impression on me. That's kind of the best answer I can give on that. Carolina 29593 writes, movie to kill time with at home. House party with Kid and Play. Kid and Play. Maybe the man John could even bust out a quick move. Well, yeah, that won't happen. But I look totally predisposed to like stuff like that. I had fun with House Party. It's totally ridiculous. But for whatever reason, I don't know why, I loved Kid and Play. I don't know whatever happened to those guys. That's a good question. I wish John Schnepp was around today for a million different reasons, but if that he could make a documentary, Kid and Play, what happened? Where are Kid and Play today? That's what I want to know. The world right now needs more Kid and Play. I used to like Kid and Play. I'm not even playing you. I used to like Kid and Play. So I don't know. There you go. All right. Ryan writes, one of two. Hey, John. 1918 Toronto Arenas win the Stanley Cup. 1919, the Stanley Cup isn't awarded due to the Spanish flu. 1993, the Toronto Blue Jays win the World Series. 1994, the baseball season ends prematurely due to the strike. 2019, the Toronto Raptors, I see where this is going. 2019, the Toronto Raptors win the NBA championship. 2020, Australia burns down and every sport is shut down indefinitely due to COVID-19. Canada is never allowed to win a major sport again. Period. South Park said it best in their feature film, Blame Canada. That is actually, you know what, Ryan, you're not actually the first person to bring that up to me, but it's true. It is weird when you look at the history of that. Now, Toronto Maple Leafs won subsequent Stanley Cups and had no world shutdown, but it should be pointed out, by the way, the Toronto Maple Leafs, which if you cut my arm right now, I bleed blue and white. I don't talk about a lot on the show because not a lot of hockey fans around here, but I have one. Listen, I like the New England Patriots. They're my favorite NFL team, but there's only one sports team that I have a life allegiance to. The only sports team I have a life allegiance to is the Toronto Maple Leafs. And wrap your heads around this. For all of you who are fans of all these other teams, y'all spoiled. Because the Toronto Maple Leafs have not even been to the Stanley Cup as long as I have drawn breath on this earth. They've never even been to the finals as long as I have been alive. Y'all can talk about being long-suffering fans about whatever team you follow. You don't know nothing. The Toronto Maple Leafs, for the entire duration of my life on earth, have never even been to the finals and, as a matter of fact, have sucked most of those years. Completely sucked. So I don't think you have to worry about the Toronto Maple Leafs winning the Stanley Cup and posing a global problem in the near future. But it is really weird when you think of it in those terms, Ryan. It absolutely is. All right, Storm Chaser writes, what is the best movie with the bad guy winning? Mine is Arlington Road, Tim Robbins, Jeff Bridges, highly underrated. It's a great movie. I like that film. Most surprising one, Wild Things, although, you know, for other reasons. I mean, obviously I was younger when I watched Wild Things. Wild Things was so hot at the time. It was so hot. I mean, this is before we discovered internet porn, but Wild Things was so hot. Anyway. Actually, to me, it's another film we were just talking about. Avengers Infinity War. Avengers Infinity War was not a cliffhanger. And, you know, Kevin Feige and the Russo brothers have re-emphasized this many times. Infinity War is not a cliffhanger ending. It's the end. It is the end of that movie. And the end is the bad guy wins. That was it. Thanos won. That was the end of that story. Now, 5 years later in the movie universe time, we get a new story. And that's something different. But yeah, Infinity War was a self-contained movie that ended with the bad guy winning. I mean, it's weird to think of it in those terms, but that's what it is. So that one stands out to me, Storm Chaser. Good question, though. And nice recommendation on Arlington Road, by the way. Andres Orella Matila writes, hey, John, are you excited for all the pandemic films that will come out after this mess? Cheers from England. You know what? Here's the thing. Hollywood is definitely quick, and so they should be. We are storytellers. As a species, we are storytellers. And so I fully expect to see a lot of, you know, pandemic movies come out, particularly about our true situation with the corona stuff. I expect to see a lot of them, and there should be. But the reality is, there's nothing, you know, even in a movie like with terrible tragedy, right? Transformers 3, Chicago getting destroyed. From a film point of view, there's a sexiness to that, right? You look at a movie like Outbreak, with the illness in Outbreak, where like people catch this thing in 24 hours, they die, right? Like from a narrative storytelling point of view, there's a sexiness to that in movie related terms. I mean, I don't know that there's anything sexy about everybody just staying at home. So what you would have to do, what I do expect, is really more than movies about the illness itself. I expect some like heist movies or whatever with the lockdown as the background. You know what I mean? So a political thriller with the lockdown as the background setting. a heist movie with the current lockdown situation as the background of the movie. I expect a lot of those, but not a lot about just the incident, about the illness and the lockdown itself, because there's not a great movie to be made about John Campea sitting down playing Unreal Tournament and Animal Crossing. Not a great movie to be played there. By the way, I'm going to do a little play in chat playing Animal Crossing. The most boring game to watch somebody play. I'm going to do a play in chat probably later today of just me playing Animal Crossing. So there's that. All right. Next up. Oh, a second. Where are we at here? Where are we at? Sorry, I just lost my screen for a second. I will get it back in just a moment. Sorry, this is my thing. Sorry, I've been using a new display arranger, and it just kind of botched on me here. Give me 1 second. I will get this back up and running, but I better do it quickly because it's almost time. And I'm back up again. All right. That was Andres. Then we had Ryan. And Mason writes, "Hey, John and Rob, did you guys happen to see that Venom 2 Russian trailer leak?" Ooh, I did not. If real, sounds pretty cool. Hopefully Sony can make us all smile by releasing the Venom 2 teaser online soon. Plus, I feel like it would go viral with the lack of content. Actually, listen, I actually heard that I believe a Venom 2 trailer was supposed to drop this week. So I didn't know about the Russian leak thing, but I've heard that a Venom 2 trailer was supposed to come this week. Whether it does or does not, we will find out. But I believe a trailer was supposed to drop this week, so we will find out. Okay, let's see here. Just time for one or two more quick ones. Moose Wizard, what a great name, writes, "I also ended a relationship last night, Rob. It's okay." Of course, Rob started off the show talking about ending his relationship with Manifest, which he has hate-watched for a while now. Major Tom writes, and this is our final question today. Major Tom writes, "Hey, John, I finally got around to seeing 1917. Wow, I missed it in theaters." Dude, that's too bad because it was such a great experience on the big screen. But still, that is a hell of a movie. I loved how it was filmed. The lighting, visuals, and the music score, astonishing filmmaking. Roger Deakins is a master. And of course, Mendes, as the director of the film, did a masterful job. 1917 is legit. It is a marvelous, fantastic movie. And yeah, so I'm glad you had a chance to finally sit down and watch it. It was absolutely brilliant. And, hey, won a lot of awards too, and got a lot of Oscar buzz, a lot of Oscar recognition, and it is a gorgeous film to look at, but also a compelling, very human story that pushes the narrative along in the midst of great cinematography, great visuals. I mean, it's just a brilliant, brilliant film, and I'm glad you enjoyed it, Tom. All right, guys, listen up. For everybody else who still has questions outstanding here, from Santez Henderson, Matthew, Lucifer, and on and on and on, do not worry. I'm going to do a companion video a little bit later today, and we will get around to all of your questions. What is that screen, and why is it? What is that screen? Why is that there? I don't know why that's there. Let me pull this one up. We will get around to all your questions in the companion video a little bit later today. Make sure you guys keep your eyes open for it because you sent in those questions. They're going to get answered properly in a video. And that'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Of course, a big thank you to Robert Meyer Burnett for being here. He will, of course, be back again tomorrow. Special thank you to all you guys who sent in the questions for two reasons. Number one, you gave us great fun things to talk about. And number two, you supported the channel while you were doing it. And all of us here, thank you for that. Guys, don't forget, we'll be back again tomorrow. Click the thumbs up button. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Guys, be smart, be safe, take care of yourselves, and take care of the people around you. Thanks a lot for being here. My name is John Campea, and we'll see you next time, guys. Bye-bye.